On the day of the grand wedding, the bridal sedan arrived at the door. My husband, Wei Zhon, asked me to wait, because standing beside him was another woman, also adorned in phoenix crown and red wedding robes, his newly widowed cousin-in-law, Liu Qingyu. He said she was 3 months pregnant, alone and helpless, and he intended to marry her as well, to be my younger sister. The entire hall of guests erupted in an uproar, but I smiled, under the astonished gazes of everyone. I lifted the bridal veil with my own hands. Stop, facing Wei Zhon's stunned expression. My voice was cool and clear, yet each word cut like a knife. Young general, I have studied and am decent at arithmetic. I would like to ask you a question. Your cousin gave his life for the country, and it has been 5 months since then. Your cousin's wife is 3 months pregnant. May I ask, was this child conceived in your cousin's coffin? Dead silence. There was deathly silent. I looked at his and Liu Qingyue's instantly pale faces and continued, the Shun family has been in business for generations, and we value reputation and returns above all else. This green hat is too expensive. I can't afford to wear it. This marriage is off. Also, please convey to the old general that the military equipment investment agreement between the Shun family and the Wei Yuan general's mansion is hereby voided. Your deep affection and profound loyalty, go spend your own money to support it. My voice wasn't loud, but it struck like a heavy hammer against the brightly decorated gate of the Wei Yuan general's mansion. The wedding hall, which had been bustling with noise and excitement just moments before, was now so quiet that I could hear Liu Qingyue's rapid, shallow breaths. Wei Zhon's face shifted from astonishment to shock, then to a livid pallor, all in the span of a few short breaths. Younger. What nonsense are you talking? He lowered his voice, his tone full of warning. What day is today? Don't be unreasonable. I smiled, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. Unreasonable. I took a step forward, my gaze fixed directly on him, and without any hesitation, I swept it over the trembling Liu Qingyu behind him. She was wearing a wedding dress similar in style to mine, though the fabric and embroidery were of lesser quality. Even so, the blatant provocation was more than enough to be sickening. Young general, I, Shun Ruoyan, never engage in transactions that result in a loss. When the Shun family marries off a daughter, the dowry procession stretches for miles, with the list of gifts so long it could pave the streets from one end to the other. I thought I was buying respect, dignity, and the honorable position of a young general's wife to bring glory to my family. Little did I know. What I bought was public humiliation and a shameless co-wife sister. My gaze finally settled on Liu Qingyue's slightly swollen belly. Even more unexpected, this sister that came as a bonus also brought along a posthumous child with an unknown father. Wei Zhon, do you think I'm a fool? Or do you believe everyone in the world is like you, unable to do even the simplest addition and subtraction? 5 minus 3 equals 2, 2 months after your cousin died. His newly widowed wife became pregnant with your child. Wei Zhon, the moral standards of your Wei Yuan general's mansion have truly opened my eyes. Every word, crystal clear. I didn't cry, I didn't make a scene, I was merely stating a fact that is enough to nail them to the pillar of shame, never to rise again. Liu Qingyu let out a loud sob and weakly collapsed into Wei Zhon's arms. Brother Zhon, I just wanted to give our child a proper name. Wei Zhon steadied her, finally looking at me with disgust and impatience in his eyes. Enough, Shun Ruoyan, as a delicate woman, Qingyu has already suffered enough. As a man, I cannot shirk my responsibility. I respect and love you, which is why I grant you the position of principal wife and allow her to be a secondary wife. What more could you possibly be dissatisfied with? I was almost driven to laughter by his shameless remarks. You will soon find out what I am dissatisfied with. I turned around, facing the already stunned bridesmaids and maids, my voice calm yet leaving no room for argument. Let's go, back to the mansion, take all the dowry back, exactly as it was, not a single item missing. From today onward, the marriage contract between Shun Ruoyan and Wei Zhon of the Wei Yuan general's mansion is null and void, and there will be no further connection between us. After saying that, I didn't spare another glance at that despicable couple and walked straight toward the main gate. Wei Zhon's mother, the Lady Dowager Wei, trembled with rage, pointing at my retreating figure and shrieking, How dare you, Shun Ruoyan, if you dare step out of this door today, don't even think about setting foot in here again. My steps didn't falter, leaving behind only a cold response. The threshold of the general's mansion is too high, I fear it would dirty my feet. As for the future, don't worry, even if you send an 8-man sedan chair to invite me, I will never set foot in this filthy place again. Behind me, Wei Zhon's furious roar echoed, and I, facing the gazes of the guests lining the streets, some filled with sympathy, some with disdain, and others simply waiting for a spectacle, walked step by step with unwavering resolve. The wedding sedan turned back the way it came. This grand wedding, which had captured the attention of the entire capital, had completely turned into a colossal joke, and I, Shen Ruoyan, was the one who personally shattered this farce. Upon returning to the Shen residence, the moment I removed the phoenix crown, my father, Shen Wanshan, was already waiting in the main hall. He didn't ask me about anything, only saying in a deep voice, "Yang, you did the right thing." My eyes grew hot, but I quickly held back the tears. "Father, your daughter has brought shame upon you and the Shen family." "Nonsense." My father slammed the table, furious. "It's the Wei family who has gone too far. My daughter, Shen Wanshan's precious jewel, how could they treat her so poorly?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with heartache and determination. "Yang, go ahead and do it with confidence. If the sky falls, your father will hold it up for you." I nodded. The gloom in my heart instantly swept away, replaced by the usual calm and decisiveness of the business world. I summoned the chief steward of the estate, also my most capable right-hand man. Uncle Zhong, draft 3 documents immediately. The first document is a letter of annulment. State the reason for the annulment: Wei Zhon's improper conduct, having an affair with his widowed sister-in-law, and violating moral principles. Use the largest seal of the Shen family and deliver it to the general's mansion. Then, send a copy to the imperial clan court for record-keeping. The second document is to be sent with an 800-mile urgent dispatch to the Weiyuan camp in the northern border. I paused briefly, my voice as cold as ice. Notify all our stationed managers and craftsmen there to withdraw immediately. Inform them that the military equipment investment agreement signed between our Shen family and the Weiyuan general's mansion is terminated immediately due to the unilateral breach of trust by the Weiyuan general's mansion. All undelivered military supplies, including 3,000 sets of new-style chainmail, 500 divine crossbows, and 100,000 sets of double-layered cotton clothing for winter warmth, are to be halted and repurposed for other uses. The third, my gaze grew even more profound, is to anonymously submit to the Ministry of War the list of some of the supplies we intercepted at the border. Say that a merchant caravan, for certain reasons, cannot fulfill its contract and is willing to sell a batch of high-quality military equipment to the court at a discounted price, to be used for military purposes. Uncle Zhong and my father were both taken aback. I explained, "Father, Uncle Zhong, terminating the agreement is a commercial action, a personal grievance, but military equipment concerns the foundation of the state. We cannot leave ourselves open to accusations of letting personal matters interfere with public duty. By selling the supplies to the Ministry of War, we can, first, silence the gossip, second, earn a favor from the Ministry of War, and third, let the court see what the Weiyuan army uses without the extra support of our Shen family, and what our Shen family is capable of providing. This move of pulling the rug out from under them must be coupled with an open strategy. I will not only cut off the Wei family's roots, but also make everyone know that without my Shen family, they are nothing." After hearing this, my father fell silent for a long time, and finally slapped his thigh heavily. "Good, let's do as Yang said, watertight, killing 3 birds with 1 stone." The order was conveyed at the fastest speed. That afternoon, the letter of annulment was delivered to the general's mansion. It is said that when old General Wei saw the letter, he was so enraged that he spat blood on the spot. He had Wei Zhon, who had just been defending Liu Qingyu, strung up on a beam and beaten with a military rod until his flesh was torn open. At first, Wei Zhon remained stubborn, believing I was merely throwing a tantrum. "Father, even if you beat me to death, it won't change anything. Yang is just angry for the moment. She'll come around in a couple of days. She loves me. She can't live without me." Old General Wei was so furious that he lashed out with another whip. "Fool, what you've ruined is not just yourself, but the future of the entire Wei family." At this moment, Wei Zhon had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. Northern border, Weiyuan camp. The cold wind cut like a knife, whipping up a sky full of sand and gravel. Deputy General Li Mu was pacing anxiously outside the main tent, rubbing his hands and breathing into them for warmth. What's going on? The Shun family's merchant caravan should have arrived 3 days ago. If this batch of new armor and divine crossbows doesn't arrive soon, our brothers will have to risk their lives against the northern barbarians' cavalry next month. A scout rushed over, his face filled with panic. General Li, it's bad news. The Shun family's merchant caravan has stopped at a relay station 300 miles away. Chief Steward Zhong, the leader, said he received an urgent order from the head of the Shun family. All supplies are to be rerouted immediately and transported to the capital. Li Mu was utterly shocked. What? Have they gone mad? This is a matter of national military importance. How can they treat it as a joke? He snatched the letter from the scout's hand. There, in black and white, was the unique wax seal of the Shun family. Agreement terminated. Withdraw immediately. These 8 short words struck Li Mu like a bolt from the blue. In an instant, he understood. Something major must have happened in the capital. Hurry, prepare the horses at once. Report this matter to the old general immediately. It's a matter of utmost urgency. Li Mu was well aware that without the support of the Shun family, their seemingly elite Weiyuan army would immediately be reduced to its former state, not even comparable to the second-rate border troops equipped by the imperial court. The capital, General Wei Yuan's residence. Wei Zhon was beaten half to death and thrown into the woodshed to reflect on his actions. He was covered in wounds, yet he still clung to a sliver of hope in his heart. He believed that as long as he went to the Shun residence to apologize, Shun Ruoyan might soften, and there would still be a chance to turn things around. However, what awaited him was not my forgiveness, but an urgent military report from the northern border, arriving like a death warrant. When General Wei, trembling, finished reading Li Mu's secret letter, he could no longer hold on. A mouthful of blood sprayed out, and he collapsed backward. General, the steward hurriedly supported him. Old General Wei's eyes were bloodshot as he pointed toward the woodshed, his voice hoarse with rage. Drag that unfilial son, over here. Wei Zhon was dragged into the main hall by 2 servants, seeing the blood at the corner of his father's mouth and the military dispatch from the northern border. A sense of foreboding finally rose in his heart. Father, slap, a resounding blow sent stars dancing before his eyes. Unfilial son, look at the mess you've made. General Wei slammed the letter onto his face. The Shun family has withdrawn their funding. All military supplies have been cut off. 3,000 new sets of armor, 500 divine crossbows, 100,000 winter uniforms, all gone. Are you trying to let tens of thousands of brothers in the Weiyuan army freeze to death in the northern border or be shot like live targets by the northern barbarians? Wei Zhon was completely stunned. He thought it was just a personal matter between him and Shun Ruoyan, but he never expected her counterattack to be so swift and so deadly. She wasn't just throwing a tantrum, she was aiming to destroy the Wei family. Meanwhile, the Ministry of War also received the anonymous message I had sent and dispatched personnel to verify the situation. The Minister of War immediately entered the palace and reported the matter in full detail to the Emperor. The Emperor was furious. An imperial decree soon arrived at the general's mansion. By order, General Wei Zhon is to depart immediately for the northern border camp to atone for his crimes through meritorious service, without imperial summons. He is not to return to the capital. This imperial decree, seemingly offering him a chance, was in fact the harshest punishment. It cast him, a commander stripped of the Shun family's support, into that mess of a situation, devoid of proper equipment and with a demoralized army. It forced him to personally experience the bitter consequences he had brought upon himself. On the day Wei Zhon was escorted out of the capital, a cold, drizzling rain fell from the sky. There was no farewell at the 10-mile pavilion, no parting words from family or old friends, only a few stern-faced military supervisors sent by the Ministry of War. Coldly urging him to set off, the prison-like carriage passed by the corner of the Shun family's street. He lifted the carriage curtain, gazing greedily at the vermilion mansion that had once been within his reach, his eyes bloodshot and filled with endless regret. He knew that what he had lost was not just a fiancée who had loved him deeply. What he personally severed was his own path to the heavens, the century-old glory of the Wei family. And what am I doing at this moment? I am in the study, facing a massive map, outlining my new blueprint to all the core managers of the Shin family, the funds withdrawn from the Wei family. I plan to invest entirely in opening up the South Seas route. Upon hearing this, everyone in the room was shocked. Miss, please reconsider. The sea route is too risky. With pirates and Japanese bandits running rampant, if a storm strikes, it could mean the destruction of the ship and the loss of all lives. That's right, miss. Our Shin family has built its century-old foundation on land routes. We have never ventured into maritime transport. This is far too dangerous. I raised my hand, signaling for them to quiet down. I'm well aware of the risks, but have you considered the rewards? I picked up a pen and drew a large circle on the southern part of the map. In the South Sea nations, silk, porcelain, and tea from the Great Xia dynasty are hard currency, worth at least 10 times their value inland, and when spices, gemstones, and rare woods from the South Sea are shipped back to Great Xia, the profits can soar to dozens of times higher. As long as this route can be established, our Shin family will no longer be just a royal merchant, but a commercial empire that controls the economic lifeline of Great Xia. My voice was not loud, yet it carried an undeniable force. By land, we have already reached our limit, but above us, the weight of imperial power and bureaucracy will always press down. The incident with the Wei family serves as a lesson. Our fate cannot forever be tied to the military achievements of others. Only by venturing into the ocean can we attain true freedom and wealth unconstrained by anyone. The shopkeepers were astounded by my blueprint, their doubts gradually turning into excitement and fervor. Under my leadership, the Shin family began to invest in the vast maritime enterprise with unprecedented boldness. We purchased the sturdiest Fuchuan ships, recruited the most experienced sailors, and hired the bravest guards. I even personally improved the compass and nautical charts, and collaborated with Western missionaries to learn their advanced navigation techniques. 3 months later, the Shin family's first ocean-going fleet, laden with hope and wealth, set sail from Quanju port. No one knew what this route would bring to me and the Shin family in the future. But I knew that when I gave up relying on a man and turned my gaze toward a broader world, my life had already turned a brand new page. I don't want to be the general's wife, I want to be my own queen. While I was busy with my career, news about Wei Zhon and Liu Qingyu also reached my ears intermittently. Wei Zhon was trapped in the northern border, and Liu Qingyu, as the secondary wife, naturally couldn't become one either. Lady Wei had always disliked her, but now she saw her as a jinx who had ruined her son's future. Liu Qingyu was placed in the most remote courtyard of the general's mansion, ostensibly to rest for her pregnancy, but in reality, she was under house arrest. It was said that her daily food, clothing, and other necessities were even worse than those of the slightly more respectable servants in the mansion. Lady Wei would visit her courtyard every few days to teach her manners, and her harsh words could be heard throughout the entire general's mansion. You jinx, you brought death upon your own husband, and now you're here to ruin my son. If it weren't for the child in your belly, I would have drowned you in the pond long ago. Dreaming of becoming an equal wife, keep dreaming. Once the child is born, you'll get out of the general's mansion. Liu Qingyu's former expertise in overcoming hardness with softness was utterly useless in the face of absolute power and disdain. She could only weep day after day, hoping that Wei Zhon would return to save her. Unfortunately, she could not wait for Wei Zhon. Instead, she received another death warrant that tarnished her reputation and made her the laughingstock of the capital. The child was born. It's a boy. The child, in the eyes and brows, bears a striking resemblance of 7 or 8 parts to Wei Zhon. Now, even the last shred of decency has been stripped away. The drama of the younger brother succeeding the elder brother might have existed in more ancient times, but the idea of the younger cousin taking in the widow after the elder cousin's death was still too shocking and unconventional. Moreover, there was the time calculation I had made on the day of the grand wedding, a 5-month deadline, a 3-month pregnancy. The evidence is ironclad. Liu Qingyu had completely become the epitome of a shameless and wanton woman. The Weiyuan general's mansion became the laughingstock of the entire capital. It is said that after learning of this, old General Wei was so enraged that he fell ill once more, closing his doors to visitors and refusing to see outsiders ever again. As for Liu Qingyu, after giving birth to the child, She was sent back to her maiden home by order of Madame Wei. Her family had always been impoverished, relying on their connection to the general's mansion to maintain a semblance of dignity. Now that she had been cast aside, they naturally showed her no kindness. From then on, she lived a life of dependence, enduring endless scornful looks. This was the status she had wanted, a status earned through betrayal and lies, forever nailed to the pillar of shame. How ridiculous! Winter in the north came early and bitterly cold. Without the Shun family's specially made double-layered wool winter coats, the soldiers of the Weiyuan army could only wear the thin cotton armor issued by the imperial court. Shivering in the bone-chilling cold wind, frostbite and illness began to spread through the army. Even more deadly was the outdated weaponry and equipment. The northern barbarian cavalry had always been known for their ferocity. In the past, Wei Zhon, relying on the new-style divine arm crossbows provided by the Shun family, could inflict heavy casualties on them from 100 paces away, holding an absolute advantage. But now, what they have in their hands are old, outdated bows and crossbows with short range and poor penetration. A sudden skirmish erupted without warning, facing the fierce and aggressive northern barbarian cavalry. The defense line of the Weiyuan army collapsed almost instantly upon contact. Arrows could not pierce the enemy's leather armor, and spears shattered like brittle sticks under their charge. Wei Zhon personally led his elite guards in a countercharge, trying to hold the line, but the armor he wore was no longer the priceless black iron treasure armor that the Shun family had custom-made for him at great expense. A curved blade easily sliced through his shoulder guard, leaving a deep, bone-exposing wound. Intense pain shot through him, and Wei Zhon fell from his horse. This was a level of humiliation and defeat he had never experienced since joining the military. In this battle, the Weiyuan army lost nearly 3,000 men and forfeited the most crucial outpost beyond the Great Wall. When the news reached the capital, the entire court was thrown into turmoil. The emperor was furious in the court. Wei Zhon, my young general, how could you suffer such a crushing defeat? The Minister of War stepped forward, trembling as he presented the report. Your Majesty, according to the investigation, the Weiyuan army's military equipment is neglected. Winter clothing is in short supply, and morale is low. Negligence, shortage. The emperor frowned. The military funds I allocate to the northern frontier every year, have they all been fed to the dogs? The Minister of Revenue hurriedly knelt down. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. The military supplies allocated by the court are all in accordance with the established standards. It's just that the Weiyuan army previously received additional support from the Shun family, and they always used the finest materials. Now that the Shun family has withdrawn their funding, it's difficult to adapt all at once. The Shun family, only then did the emperor remember. He hastily summoned my father to court for questioning. Minister Shun, is this matter true? My father stepped forward and bowed neither humbly nor arrogantly. Your Majesty, it is indeed true. The engagement between my daughter and Wei Zhon has been annulled, and the business dealings between our two families have naturally ceased as a result. This is standard commercial practice, and I hope your Majesty will understand. His words were spoken flawlessly. Yes, it's just standard business practice. The general's son has poor character, so my daughter will not marry him, and naturally, the cooperation between our two families will cease. It's only natural. The emperor fell silent. He knew the inside story. Yet he could not blame the Shun family for anything. In the end, he could only order Wei Zhon to be dismissed from his post, investigated, and escorted back to the capital to await punishment. The young general, once renowned throughout the capital, had overnight become a prisoner. Just as the prison cart carrying Wei Zhon slowly entered the capital city, the first ocean-going fleet of my Shun family finally returned fully loaded. The dock was packed with people. When those three massive Fuchuan ships, flying the Shun family's flag, slowly sailed into the harbor, the entire city was stirred. The sailors on the ship, their skin tanned dark, had faces glowing with excitement and pride. What they brought back were entire shiploads of pepper, sapanwood, ivory, gemstones, and all sorts of rare treasures that the great Xia dynasty had never even heard of. When the news reached the capital, everyone went wild. The value of these goods, conservatively estimated, was 20 times the capital I had initially invested. 20 times. This is a figure that would drive any merchant wild with envy. Shun Ruoyon, overnight, transformed from a pitiful abandoned bride into the goddess of wealth that everyone envied. I ordered the most precious batch of spices brought back by the fleet and a pigeon egg-sized South Sea pearl to be presented to the Empress and Empress Dowager in the palace. The two most esteemed women in the palace were utterly captivated by these exotic treasures. The Empress even summoned me to the palace specifically, taking my hand and offering gentle words of comfort. "My dear child, I have heard about your situation. It is that Wei family boy who lacks the fortune. Now, seeing you so accomplished, I can rest assured," I respectfully replied. "Thank you for your grace, your majesty. A woman does not necessarily have to rely on her husband's family to establish herself in the world. It is my fortune to be able to share the burdens of my family and to assist His Majesty." My words greatly pleased the Empress. Soon, the news that I had been exceptionally appointed as the imperial merchant spread throughout the capital. This was not merely an honorary title. It means that from now on, the Shun family's business carries the endorsement of the royal family. It means that I, Shun Ruoyeon, can rightfully participate in some national-level commercial projects. My social status instantly surpassed that of all the noble women in the capital. When they see me, even the wives of princes and nobles must respectfully address me as Boss Shun, because they knew that the silks and satins they wore, the pearl hairpins and jewelry on their heads, and the food, clothing, and daily necessities in the mansion all depended on my Shun family's business. I was the one who truly held the key to their quality of life. After Wei Zhon returned to the capital, he was imprisoned in the Ministry of Justice's dungeon. Old General Wei, despite his ailing health, exhausted all his efforts and spent his entire fortune to barely save his life. In the end, the emperor issued an edict, stripping him of all his official positions, demoting him to a commoner, and decreeing that he would never be reinstated. The general's mansion of Weiyuan had completely fallen into decline. Emerging from the prison, Wei Zhon seemed like a changed man. He was no longer the spirited young general of the past, but a prisoner with a shadowed gaze and a disheveled appearance. The first thing he did was come to the Shun residence to find me. That day, I was discussing the reform of the canal transport system with the Minister of Revenue. Uncle Zhong walked in and whispered in my ear, "Miss Wei Zhon is outside the residence requesting to see you." Without even looking up, I continued to glance at the account book and said calmly, "I won't see him. He said he has an extremely urgent matter and begs you to see him." I turned a page of the ledger, my tone devoid of any emotion. "Uncle Zhong, I am very busy today. I need to finalize the details of water transport with the Minister of Revenue. And this afternoon I have to go to the Ministry of Works to review the blueprints for the new loom. I have no time to meet an irrelevant failure. Let him go, and don't come back again." Uncle Zhong nodded and withdrew. Outside the mansion gate, Wei Zhon was dressed in a faded old robe, looking haggard and gaunt. Seeing Uncle Zhong come out, a glimmer of hope ignited in his eyes. "Uncle Zhong, has Yang agreed to see me?" Zhong Shu looked at him, a hint of pity in his eyes, but more than that, a sense of detachment. "Young Master Wei, please go back. My lady is currently discussing state affairs with the Minister of Revenue and has no time to spare." The young lady also said that from now on, there is no need for you to come again. The Shun family and you have long since settled all accounts. Wei Zhon felt as if struck by lightning, staggering back 2 steps. Discussing state affairs with the Minister of Revenue. Once upon a time, that girl who had him in her heart and eyes, who would personally sew his battle robes, now stood at a height he could only look up to, or perhaps not even qualify to look up to. And he, from the clouds, fell into the dust. The immense disparity and regret gnawed at his heart like a venomous snake. He knew that what he had lost was not just a wife. What he had personally destroyed was his own path to the heavens. "No, I must see her. I absolutely must see her." He was like a madman, trying to force his way inside. The guards of the Shun residence immediately stepped forward, firmly restraining him. "Master Wei, please show some self-respect." Wei Zhon struggled, roaring, his voice filled with despair. "Shun Ruoyeon, come out. You come out. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Give me another chance. Okay, let's start over." His cries drew the attention of passers-by on the street. People pointed at him, their faces filled with disdain and mockery. "Isn't that Wei Zhon? How dare he come looking for Miss Shun?" Exactly. He humiliated her so badly on their wedding day, and now that he's down on his luck, He wants to come crawling back. Dream on. I sit in the study, the sounds from outside faintly reaching my ears. The pen in my hand does not pause for a moment. Regret. The cheapest thing in this world is regret that comes too late. Wei Zhon, your remorse is worthless to me. Over the next 2 years, my life seemed to be on a winning streak. The South Seas trade route brought me a continuous flow of wealth. I used this money to invest in the imperial government's water conservancy projects, solving the long-standing flood problems that had plagued several southern provinces for years. I reformed the canal transport system, greatly improving the efficiency of grain transportation, which allowed the imperial treasury to grow increasingly prosperous. I also established the largest women's school in the capital, teaching women to read, do arithmetic, and engage in business. I told them that a woman's worth does not lie in marrying a good man, but in how much value she can create herself. My reputation grew louder and louder. People no longer call me Miss Shun or Boss Shun. They began to address me with reverence as Shun, the god of wealth of the great Xia dynasty. Even the emperor, upon seeing me, would jokingly say, Minister Shin, the treasury is tight again lately. Do you have any ideas for generating wealth? I can always come up with a plan that satisfies him. With my business acumen, I have injected new vitality into this ancient empire. I have become the emperor's most trusted right-hand man, and my words carry more weight in the court than those of many ministers. I do not need the protection of any man. Because of me, I have become strong enough to shelter many people. My Shin family has also, because of me, reached an unprecedented level of glory. We are no longer that imperial merchant who needed to rely on military achievements to stand firm. We are a commercial empire capable of influencing national policies and dancing with imperial power. The peaceful days were shattered by an urgent military dispatch from the northern frontier, delivered by a courier traveling 800 li in a single day. After 3 years of recuperation, the northern barbarians had assembled an army of 200,000 troops and launched another large-scale invasion southward. This time, they came with overwhelming force, and the border defenders suffered successive defeats, having already lost 3 major strongholds. The entire imperial court was shrouded in a cloud of gloom and despair. To wage war, money is needed, a vast amount of money, although the national treasury had a surplus after years of recuperation. It was still insufficient to support a war of such scale. Once again, all eyes were fixed on me. That day, the emperor summoned me alone to the imperial study. He did not beat around the bush and got straight to the point. Minister Shin, the nation is in peril, and I hope you can once again share the burden for the country. I bowed respectfully. It is my duty to share your majesty's concerns. However, I am willing to provide the funds, but this time, how the money is spent, how the troops are trained, and how the provisions are transported must be fully managed by my people. I do not want to see the military equipment that my Shin family has paid for in real gold and silver being wasted on the battlefield by a group of incompetents. My conditions are somewhat overstepping. It is essentially asking the emperor for a portion of the supervisory authority in the military, but the emperor pondered for a moment and actually agreed. Granted. As long as we can win this battle, I grant your request. He looked at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. In addition, I intend to reinstate a group of veteran generals, Wei Zhon, although he made a grave mistake before. After all, he has been in the northern border for many years and is familiar with military affairs. I wish to give him a chance to atone for his crimes and earn merit by appointing him as the deputy commander of the Vanguard Battalion. What do you think? I lifted my head, met the emperor's gaze, and slowly shook it. Your Majesty, the appointment of personnel is your prerogative. I dare not interfere, but my funds will only be invested in generals who can win battles. I do not trust someone who once led the 3 armies to defeat due to the neglect of military preparedness. My attitude is resolute and clear. The emperor looked at me deeply and finally sighed. I understand. I don't know if this was Wei Zhon's last hope, but I know that I personally extinguished it. To discuss the specific details of the expedition, the emperor held a state banquet in the palace. Those invited were all first-rank officials in the court and core military generals, and I, a merchant without any official position, was seated at the secondary seat closest to the emperor. At the banquet, I chatted and laughed with the Minister of War and the Minister of Revenue, discussing every detail of grain and fodder allocation and military equipment transportation. Every suggestion I made was taken seriously and recognized by everyone present. I promised to allocate 3 million taels of silver from the Shun family treasury as the first installment of military funds for this expedition. At the same time, I will personally oversee to ensure that every penny is spent where it matters most. The emperor was overjoyed and raised his glass on the spot. With Minister Shun here, I have no worries. Great Xia will surely triumph. The ministers all echoed in agreement, and the atmosphere reached its peak of enthusiasm. After 3 rounds of drinks, I rose to take my leave. Stepping out of the hall, which was as warm as spring, a gust of cold wind rushed toward my face. I tightened the fox fur cloak around me and prepared to board the carriage that had long been waiting outside the palace gate. Just then, I saw a person, a man wearing the armor of a low-ranking deputy general. Kneeling on the cold stone steps outside the palace, it was Wei Zhon. He looked even thinner than a few years ago, his face etched with hardship and humility. He had clearly seen me as well. His body jolted violently, and a complex, intense light instantly erupted in his eyes. There is regret, pain, pleading, and a hint of unwillingness. He opened his mouth as if wanting to say something. Our gazes met in the air. A few years ago, on a similar occasion, he was the young hero surrounded by admirers, while I was the joyful young girl about to become his wife. Years later, I became the empire's financial god, wielding immense power. While he didn't even have the right to step into this palace, he could only kneel here, like a pitiful dog, begging for a chance to atone for his crimes through meritorious service. And I, just moments ago inside the hall, calmly and effortlessly, dashed his last hope. He looked at me, his lips trembling, and finally let out a hoarse voice. Yanga, just 2 words. Yet they seemed to drain all his strength. I stopped in my tracks, quietly watching him. No hatred, no love. My heart is as calm as a stagnant pool of water. Time is truly a wondrous thing. It can heal the deepest wounds and wear away even the most unforgettable love until nothing remains. I thought that upon seeing him again, there would at least be a ripple in my heart, but I didn't. I looked at him as if he were a stone by the roadside, a complete stranger. I said nothing, I just withdrew my gaze, turned around, and continued walking toward my carriage. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. My footsteps are steady and resolute. I hear a suppressed, beast-like whimper of sorrow from behind me. That is Wei Zhon. I didn't turn back, because I know, for someone who has been completely removed from your life, any response is a form of mercy, and I don't want to give him that mercy. Indifference, that is the final judgment for him, and for my dead feelings. The carriage slowly started and drove away from the brightly lit imperial palace. Outside the carriage window, Wei Zhon's figure was left far behind, growing smaller and smaller, eventually turning into a blurry black dot, completely disappearing from my world. That battle ended in a great victory for Daxia. The old general I recommended lived up to expectations, thoroughly defeating the northern barbarians, who dared not venture south to graze their horses for the next 10 years. As for me, due to my irreplaceable contributions in this war, I was conferred the title of Imperial Merchant Protector of the nation by the Emperor, a position of exceptional status. I did not remarry. It wasn't that there were no talented young men in the capital who showed me favor. Even princes from neighboring countries had sent envoys to propose marriage, but I refused them all. After what happened with Wei Zhon, I came to understand. Placing one's own joys and sorrows in the hands of another man is the most foolish investment in the world. Men can change their hearts, they can betray, but the wealth and power held in one's own hands will never be. I stood on the highest moon-viewing tower of the Shun family, overlooking the bustling capital beneath my feet. The myriad lights of the city shone as brightly as stars. Half of that brilliance was lit by my own hands. Shun-Ruoyon, I don't need to become someone's wife to prove my worth. Because I, Shun-Ruoyon, am already an unparalleled monument in my own right. My name will be recorded in history alongside the most dazzling legends of this era. As for Wei Zhon, I heard that he was later sent to a remote border town, where he became a lowly patrol officer and was never given an important position again for the rest of his life. He, Liu Qingyu, and that child lived a destitute and forgotten life in that small town. Occasionally, I would hear a word or two about him from the caravans traveling north and south, but those were just fleeting thoughts, just like brushing off a speck of dust from the corner of my clothes. It can no longer stir even the slightest ripple in my heart. You and I are ultimately not on the same path. You sink in your own mire. While I have long ascended to the peak that belongs to me, the pinnacle of a queen, after hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. To save my husband, I was severely injured by bandits and thrown into the river. 3 years later, I returned to the capital and went to my former home, but before I could even enter the gate, I was stopped by my husband, who had already remarried. I have already taken a new wife, and the children get along well with her. Be sensible and don't try to take her place. At that moment, my guilt vanished. I could also wholeheartedly offer myself to my benefactor. I stood before the gate of the Du residence. This door, which had always been open for me, was now tightly shut. The gatekeeper looked troubled, lowering his voice to urge me to leave. After a moment, Lu Jingshan finally appeared. It had been 3 years since we last met. He was dressed in fine silk robes, adorned with a beautiful jade pendant at his waist, and his face looked fuller than I remembered. He avoided my gaze. His tone cold and firm. Chinga, you shouldn't have come back. I froze, a sudden sourness welling up in the tip of my nose. Unconsciously, I tightened my grip on the gifts I had prepared for the children, my knuckles turning white, my voice trembling slightly. Jingshan, I came back just to see Yue and Xiena. Are they doing well now? They're doing just fine. No need for you to worry. He remained aloof, pausing briefly before speaking again, as if determined to make his words final. I have long since remarried, and the children get along well with her. Be mindful of yourself and don't try to take her place. This undisguised favoritism made me feel utterly superfluous. Before my relieved smile could fully form, a woman in elegant attire had already affectionately taken Lu Jingshan's arm. She looked me up and down, smiling sweetly. This must be Sister Shen, right? Lu Jingshan gently patted the back of her hand, soothing her softly. It's her. Don't worry, Liana, since I've married you, I won't let anyone else take your place. How familiar these words sounded. Back when he was still a poor scholar, he had also promised me, Chinga, in this life, I, Lu Jingshan, will have only you. Now this woman is charming and radiant, completely different from me, yet he loves her dearly. Zhao Wanlian shot him a reproachful look upon hearing this. What are you saying, husband? Sister entered the household first, so by etiquette, I should serve her tea, yet you won't even let her through the door. Isn't that inviting gossip? As she spoke, she reached out to take my arm, but I gently avoided her touch. No need to trouble yourself. Bowing slightly, I looked at her, my voice calm. You will always be his rightful wife. I came only to see the child and will leave soon. Stepping through the mansion gate, everything I saw felt unfamiliar. The courtyard furnishings, the faces of the servants, all were new. I had just settled in the hall when a servant hurried in to report. The young master had gotten into a fight at the academy, and the teacher had punished him by making him kneel and sending him home with a suspension. My heart tightened abruptly. When I had my accident, Xiena was only 3 years old, a soft, chubby little boy. I wonder what he looks like now. The door curtain was lifted, and Xiena followed the servant in, hanging his head dejectedly. Tears instantly blurred my vision, and I couldn't help but rise to meet him. Mother, he looked up with a sob in his voice, but he passed right by me and threw himself into Zhao Wanlian's arms. Zhao Wanlian gently scolded him for being mischievous, but her hands held him tenderly, offering comfort. My outstretched hand froze in midair, and I had no choice but to withdraw it. A moment later, Zhao Wanlian pointed at me and asked him, Xiena, this is your birth mother. Do you still remember her? I remember, he answered without hesitation. Just as a flicker of warmth began to stir in my heart, he immediately buried his face even deeper into Zhao Wanlian's embrace. Something's not right. Xiena is already 6 years old and has begun to study and learn manners. Yet not only did he get into a fight at the academy, but now, in front of the elders and guests in the hall, he doesn't even offer a basic greeting. Du Jingshan promptly scolded, Xiena, don't be rude, quickly greet your birth mother. Du Yishuan then reluctantly moved in front of me and gave a hasty bow. Suppressing the doubts in my heart, I asked softly, Xiena has grown so big, have you missed your mother? He actually took a step back, his eyes filled with wariness. No, my current mother treats me extremely well, never lets me suffer any grievances, and is very interesting. Why have you come back? Are you here to take my new mother away? I stood frozen in place, my heart feeling as if it had been sharply pierced, a fine, spreading pain coursing through my entire body. Yet what pained me most was not his distance, rather, it was the clear realization that my once innocent and lively Xiena had now been spoiled into willful and reckless behavior. Zhao Wanlian smiled and pulled Xiena into her arms. Xiena, your birth mother is just here to see you. Xiena would never leave his mother. This statement, seemingly meant to help me out of an awkward situation, actually sealed my lips, making it difficult for me to speak again. The way Xiena clung tightly to her pierced my heart like a needle. I turned my head away, not daring to look any longer, my nails digging fiercely into my palms. At that moment, Yue walked in. At 9 years old, she had grown tall and graceful, dressed exquisitely, yet not as lively as I remembered. She glanced at me, her eyes quickly shifting away. I was about to speak when Yue already bowed properly. Father, mother. Turning to me, she gave only a slight bow, her voice devoid of emotion. Madam Shen. The words Madam Shen struck me like a blow, darkening my vision. I blurted out, my voice trembling, Yue. Zhao Wanlian explained the situation beside us, letting Yue and me catch up. Yue sat down woodenly, looked up at me, her eyes calm and unruffled. How has Madam Shen been these past few years? I looked at my daughter, who seemed like a completely different person, my throat tightening as I leaned forward to grasp her cold hands. Yue, I am your mother. Have you forgotten your mother? Yue let me hold her hands, her tone icy. Since you have a new mother now, it wouldn't be right for me to call you mother anymore. Mrs. Shen, Yue is now under my mother's care. Please do not disturb us anymore. I froze. My heart felt as if it had been instantly hollowed out. Leaving behind a deathly silence, in the hall, Du Jingshan nodded with satisfaction, and Zhao Wanlian also praised Yue for being sensible. My eyes stung, and I desperately held back tears, but in the end, I still let go of Yue's hand. Leaving the gift on the table, I turned and walked away. Every step felt unusually heavy. Zhao Wanlian's personal maid chased me to the main gate. Madam Shen, please wait. She handed over a stained bundle, which was exactly the gift I had prepared for the children. The young master was so angry when he saw this that he threw it on the ground, and the young lady said she didn't want it either. After careful consideration, the mistress decided to have me return it. The maid's tone was hesitant, but her expression could not conceal her smugness. I took the bundle, my fingertips brushing against the stains, and instead, I smiled with relief. Well, that last bit of attachment is now severed. I can now wholeheartedly devote myself to my savior. As I turned to leave, my eyes caught a familiar figure in the corner, struggling to carry firewood. His clothes were tattered, and his body was hunched over. It was actually Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu was once the steward of the Du residence. His wife, Auntie Shu, was my wet nurse and also my former trusted confidant. Ever since I married Du Jingshan and followed him to the capital, the couple had accompanied me all the way from the Shen family. They watched me grow up, and in my heart, they are like family elders whom I should respect. But now, with his hair turning grey, Uncle Fu is still doing hard labor in the mansion. Du Jingshan originally came from a poor background. He was able to study and pass the imperial examinations only with the support of my family. Now, everything he eats, wears, lives in, and uses, which of these was not provided by my family, if my family had not spared any expense to pave the way for him? How could his official career have been so smooth? If he remarried just a year after my death and treated me coldly upon my return, that is heartlessness. Then his harsh treatment of the loyal servants of the Shen family is an act of injustice. He had disguised himself too well in the past. It is only now that I have come to see clearly his hypocritical, ungrateful face. Just as I was about to step forward, Uncle Fu had already been roughly pushed aside by several servants. I clenched my fists, suppressing the heartache, and thought of Yue's expression in the hall again, my emotions in turmoil. My benefactor saved my life and took meticulous care of me for 3 years. After regaining my memory, I didn't immediately agree to his marriage proposal because I was concerned about my child. He said he would wait for me until the day I willingly gave myself to him. The visit to the Du residence made me see my own heart clearly. However, even though my children have drifted away from me, I cannot ignore Butler Fu. Gritting my teeth, I temporarily suppressed the thought of leaving, Thinking of my benefactor, warmth rises in my heart, and I pick up a pen to write a letter. I will come as soon as the matter is settled, and I vow not to let you down. The night was deep and dark. I made my way to the servants' courtyard by memory, then climbed over the high wall. During the days of amnesia and recovery, I had trained hard in martial arts for self-preservation, and now it finally came in handy. Holding my breath, I took out the knockout incense from the bundle my benefactor had prepared for me and lit it. As expected, the guards were quickly subdued by me. Sneaking into the backyard, I saw Uncle Fu curled up on a tattered straw mat in the corner. After feeding him the antidote, he slowly regained consciousness. Upon seeing it was me, his eyes lit up with joy. Young miss, sure. I quickly made a gesture to signal silence. It's me, Uncle Fu. His throat tightened, and he suddenly fell to his knees with a thud, his forehead hitting the ground heavily. Tears streamed down his face as he spoke in a hoarse voice. Miss, it's this old servant's fault. I couldn't protect the young master, nor could I guard your family's legacy. I hurriedly helped him up, looking at the bloodstain on his temple, my nose tingling with emotion. Uncle Fu, this isn't your fault. Uncle Fu roughly wiped his face, suppressing his grief and anger. Young miss, you shouldn't have come back. The Du residence is no longer what it used to be. I glanced at the soiled bundle placed to the side, my heart filled with bitterness. Uncle Fu, I just wanted to come back to see the children, but now Shiena doesn't recognize me, and Yua also told me to leave. Miss, Uncle Fu gently interrupted me, as if recalling something unpleasant, his eyes filled with even greater sorrow. Please don't blame the young miss. It's all because of this old servant's incompetence. His voice trembled. That Zhao woman puts on a virtuous front in public, but in private, she mocks and ridicules the young lady, often saying in front of others that she is, after all, the daughter of a merchant woman and unfit for high society. If the young lady shows even a hint of missing you, she makes veiled accusations, calling her an ungrateful wretch. My heart felt as if it were being tightly clenched, and Uncle Fu choked up, unable to speak. Later, she even used the excuse of discipline to physically punish the young lady, my old wife. She was framed for theft and beaten to death with sticks. All because she tried to shield the young lady from the punishment. Nanny Shu, I cried out in shock, tears instantly welling up in my eyes. Uncle Fu hurriedly comforted me. Don't cry, young lady. We old bones have long stopped caring about life and death. This old servant has been clinging to life, only hoping to shield our young mistress from one more calamity. It's just a pity that ever since then, she has never dared to resist again. Young lady, the way our young mistress treated you was likely out of fear that you might end up like my old wife, at the hands of that black-hearted Zhao family. Uncle Fu, you don't need to say any more, I interrupted him, as hatred surged uncontrollably within me, and tears continued to stream down my face. I bit my lip hard, my gaze fixed on the inner courtyard. When I spoke again, my tone was icy and resolute. I'm going now, to take Yua away. Outside Yua's courtyard gate, several burly servants stood guard like an iron barrel. I quickly lit the incense, and the guards collapsed in response. Rushing into the inner room, under the faint candlelight, Yua was curled up in the corner of the bed, sleeping restlessly. Yua, I called softly. She slowly opened her eyes, and in her daze, she saw me, her voice as light as a sigh. Mother, you've come to my dreams again. I saw you during the day. I'm sorry, Yua didn't mean to treat you that way. Seeing her sensible demeanor, my voice trembled as I tightly grasped her cold little hand. Yua, it's not a dream. Mother is here. I've come to take you away. Yua froze, tears silently flooding her eyes. Mother, I held her close, her frail body cutting into my heart like a knife. I'm sorry, Mother is late. The little figure in my arms trembled violently, as if waking from a dream, and pushed me away in panic. Mother, go quickly. Staying here will get you killed, Yua. I held her tightly. Mother knows, I'll take you out, and we'll never come back. After a long while of comforting, the person in her arms gradually calmed down. Mother, I failed to discipline my younger brother properly, and also Nanny Shu, she sobbed uncontrollably, filled with grievance and self-blame. Mother knows. I know everything. I spoke softly to comfort her, but my fingertips brushed against the uneven scars beneath her thin clothes. Hatred coursed through my entire body, and I knew I could wait no longer. I cupped Yua's tear-streaked face, looking directly into her frightened eyes, and said word by word, "Yua, we're leaving now. Once we're settled, I will make those villains pay." Yua nodded firmly, a faint glimmer of light flickering in her eyes. I pulled her up, called for Uncle Fu, and the three of us hurried toward the depths of the rear garden. Well, a lazy, sharp female voice suddenly rang out, late at night. "Where is my sister taking my Du family's daughter and servant for a stroll?" Zhao Wanlian emerged from the darkness, a malicious smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Behind her, several burly maids and servants brandished clubs, their faces fierce and menacing. Mother, Yua's little face was deathly pale, her whole body trembling as she shrank behind me in terror. I stepped forward without hesitation, shielding her firmly, my voice cold and hard as ice. "Zhao Wanlian, your stepmother is harming her own daughter. Aren't you afraid of being condemned by the world if this gets out?" She let out a sharp, piercing laugh. "Spread the word. Anyone who could spread it has become a wild ghost in the mass grave. What do I have to fear?" She looked at us with disgust. "You, on the other hand, a dead person who should have rotted in the mud long ago, dare to challenge me. You and your mother, reeking of money, are utterly disgusting to look at." With a wave of her hand, the vicious servants closed in. My fingertips quietly slipped into my sleeve, gripping the porcelain bottle of knockout drug. "What's all this noise?" A sharp shout rang out. Du Jingshan hurried over, his outer robe loosely draped over him. His sinister gaze swept over the crowd and settled on Zhao Wanlian's face, carrying the irritation of being disturbed. "Jingshan." Zhao Wanlian instantly changed her expression and threw herself into his arms. "I was worried that Yua might be unwell at night, so I went to check on her out of kindness. Who would have thought I would catch my sister trying to abduct Yua and flee?" She looked on the verge of tears, as if she had truly been frightened. "Nonsense," I retorted sharply, suppressing my disgust, and pointed at Zhao Wanlian as I questioned Du Jingshan. My voice was not loud, but each word was firm, filled with disappointment and resolve. "Du Jingshan, for the past 3 years, is this how you've indulged her and raised our child like this?" Du Jingshan was startled by the disappointment in my eyes, then flew into a rage. "Liana has been raised with the utmost care. Now, Shenna is responsible. And Yua is growing more mature by the day. How can you speak of indulgence? Mature? Yua is only 9 years old. What need is there for maturity?" My voice suddenly rose, each word dripping with anguish. "As a father, do you know that she abuses Yua every single day? I am Yua's birth mother, and I want to take her away now. If you have any conscience left, let us leave quickly." "Birth mother," Du Jingshan sneered. "Shinchinga, how dare you even mention the word birth mother, a tainted flower, ravaged and ruined by bandits, still dreaming of taking away my Du family's daughter. You raised such a shameless, rebellious thing who would betray her father and flee in secret, and now you dare to slander Liana for mistreating her." His words were like a venomous whip, lashing at my heart, blow after blow. "Exactly," a childish voice suddenly rang out. Shenna had been brought over at some point, rubbing his sleepy eyes. The moment he saw me clearly, he broke free from the old woman's grasp, rushed over, and pushed hard against my waist. "Bad woman, unwanted bad woman, get out of my house. Don't you dare take my new mother away. Get out." Caught off guard, I stumbled from the push. A sharp pain shot through my side, yet it paled in comparison to the ache in my heart. I bit my lip hard to hold back the tears welling in my eyes, steadying myself. When I looked again, Shenna had already thrown himself into Zhao Wanlian's arms. I looked at Du Jingshan with a tone of sarcasm. "This is the son you call responsible." Upon hearing this, Zhao Wanlian pulled Shenna into her arms and immediately feigned concern for Yua. "Yua, be good, come to mother. Don't be afraid, both your father and I are here. This madwoman will only corrupt you, make you just like her. Shameless." The last 4 words, she spoke softly and slowly. Upon hearing this, Du Jingshan completely lost his patience, as if all my resistance was a great provocation to his authority. "Enough," he waved his hand abruptly, his tone icy. "The Du family cannot tolerate such filthy affairs. Guards, take the eldest young lady back to her room." His fierce gaze then turned to me. "As for this person who dared to try and abduct a member of the Du family, break her legs and throw her into the mass grave outside the city. Let her fend for herself." "Yes, master." The leading servant stepped forward, while another servant suddenly grabbed for Yua behind me. The knockout drug in my sleeve was ready to be deployed. Boom. At that moment, the tightly shut gate of the Du residence suddenly shattered into pieces with a loud crash. The dust had not yet settled when a tall, imposing figure burst in, his voice cold and authoritative. "Who dares to lay a hand on her?" The newcomer strode forward, steadying my unsteady form with a firm grip, and asked with concern, "Chinga, are you hurt?" Bracing myself to steady my stance, I suppressed the churning of my chi and blood, and asked with concern, "Why have you come here?" "My benefactor, I received your letter," he spoke concisely, his gaze sweeping over the crowd and the chaos in the courtyard. "I was afraid you wouldn't be able to handle it." A mix of warmth and regret welled up in my heart. "You have saved me again, my benefactor," he smiled wryly in resignation. "I've told you. Just call me Ming Yuan." Before I could speak, Du Jingshan cut me off. He snapped back to his senses, his eyes blazing with fury. "Who dares to be so reckless as to destroy the gates of the Du residence?" Zhao Wanlian reacted with lightning speed, immediately clinging to him. "Husband, do you even need to ask? It must be my sister's secret lover coming to find her." "Secret lover?" Du Jingshan sneered, casting a contemptuous glance at me. "She's just a tainted, lowly merchant's daughter, who would..." Before the words could fully leave his mouth, a cold gleam flashed. Xiao Heng's sword was already precisely pressed against Du Jingshan's throat, his tone icy. "Who did you call lowly?" The icy touch and the undisguised killing intent in Xiao Heng's eyes sent chills down one's spine, but Du Jingshan still forced himself to straighten his back. "She is my woman, Du Jingshan's woman. I can scold her as I please. Who do you think you are, daring to draw your sword against this official?" My heart tightened, and I hurried forward. "Ming Yuan, this matter started because of me. You shouldn't be dragged into it." Xiao Heng raised his hand, signaling me to be quiet and step back. His gaze locked onto Du Jingshan once more, as if looking at an ant. First, he pointed his sword tip vaguely in Zhao Wanlian's direction. "Since you took another wife, Chinga has had nothing to do with you. Second, a mere third-rank vice minister. I can kill him as I please. I spared your life only because I didn't want to dirty my sword." Du Jingshan was provoked into a wild laugh. "A woman I don't want, you treat her like a treasure, and you even dare to talk nonsense here." Xiao Heng suddenly sheathed his sword and turned to instruct, "Cover your eyes." From the shadows, a ghostly black figure sprang up, a flash of sword light precisely piercing Du Jingshan's abdomen. Zhao Wanlian screamed in shock and hurriedly rushed forward. I also grasped Xiao Heng's sleeve, my fingertips icy cold. Xiao Heng turned back, his voice gentle and comforting. "Don't worry, he won't die." I fell silent for a moment. "I'm not afraid he'll die. I'm worried you'll get into trouble." At the same time, the shadowy figure spoke coldly, daring to speak disrespectfully to our prince. "You deserve to die, Prince." Du Jingshan suddenly looked up, his eyes fixed on Xiao Heng, the intense pain from his wound overwhelmed by fear. You are Prince Jing." Prince Jing. Xiao Heng, styled Ming Yuan, grew up with the new emperor and was as close as brothers. At a young age, he had already achieved remarkable military feats, and he remains the only non-imperial prince in the dynasty's history to this day. Xiao Heng could no longer be bothered to look at him. His voice was not loud, yet it carried an overwhelming authority. "I am taking this person with me now. Do you have any objections?" Du Jingshan stood frozen, speechless. There was no need to wait for his answer. Xiao Heng had already shielded me by his side and walked straight out of this suffocating doorway. Inside the carriage, Yue fell into a deep sleep in my arms. I turned to Xiao Heng, who was resting with his eyes closed, took a deep breath, and bent my knees to bow. "I, a common woman, failed to recognize your highness as Prince Jing. I beg your highness to forgive my offense." Before I could finish speaking, a warm hand had already steadied me. Xiao Heng gave a helpless, bitter smile. "It took you 3 years to stop calling me benefactor. How long do you plan to keep calling me your highness?" I froze. "Your highness has shown me immense kindness." This commoner, he cut me off, asking in return, "Chinga, you wrote to me saying you would never betray me. Now, being so distant, are you going back on your word?" My heart tightened abruptly, and I pressed my lips together. When I lost my memory, Xiao Heng concealed his identity from me. I always thought he was an ordinary general, and I truly took the matter of giving myself to him to heart, pondering it carefully. But now, he is the esteemed and noble Prince Jing. and I, with Yue and Uncle Fu, and the entanglements of the Du family behind me, the thought of offering myself in marriage now seems rather presumptuous. I spoke recklessly out of ignorance before. Please forgive me, Your Highness. From now on, I am willing to do my utmost to repay your kindness. I lowered my head even further. Xiao Heng chuckled softly, with a hint of self-mockery. To be honest, you were much more adorable when you had amnesia. What a shame your identity can no longer be hidden. The air grew heavy, and I fell silent, not daring to speak another word. It wasn't until the carriage came to a halt in front of the prince's mansion. As we stepped down, Xiao Heng said, "It's too late, you'll have to make do with staying at my residence for the night. I know this place is not far from our previous residence." Now that his identity is clear, he no longer bothers to hide it. Holding Yue in my arms, I replied softly, "This commoner thanks Your Highness for taking us in." Xiao Heng ignored me, stepping through the door as if muttering to himself, "Commoner, commoner, if you call yourself that again tomorrow, I'll make you eat 3 bowls of rice as punishment." I was slightly taken aback, while recovering from amnesia. He heard the doctor say that my slow recovery was due to eating too little, so he instructed the kitchen to prepare different dishes for me every day, and every time he visited, he would insist that I have an extra bowl. Watching me eat it all, recalling the past, warmth melted in my heart. Watching Xiao Heng's retreating figure, it was no different from the young general in my memory. The unfamiliarity I felt toward Prince Jing gradually faded away. I smiled faintly and hurried to catch up. The news that Du Jingshan, the Vice Minister of Works, was fined a year's salary and placed under house arrest to recuperate from his injuries quietly spread throughout the capital. Rumors began to swirl, with some saying he had abandoned his wife and indulged in evil deeds, while others claimed he had angered Prince Jing. Former colleagues who once called each other brothers now avoid him like the plague. He has been bedridden for many days, yet not a single person has come to visit. In the Du residence, the scent of medicine permeates the air. Du Jingshan lay in bed, his eyes vacant as he stared at the canopy above. In the past, Shenqinga's gentle smile, Yue's toddling steps, all eventually transformed into Xiao Heng's penetrating, cold, and authoritative gaze. With a creak, the door was pushed open. Zhao Wanlian entered, holding a medicine bowl, her eyes concealing a trace of irritation. She sat by the bedside, scooped a spoonful of medicine, and said softly, "Husband, it's time to take your medicine." Du Jingshan suddenly raised his hand, sending the medicine spoon flying with a sharp crack. The brown medicinal liquid splattered all over Zhao Wanlian. "Ah!" Zhao Wanlian screamed, her long-suppressed anger instantly erupting. "Du Jingshan, what madness is this? Do you think starving yourself and pretending to be dead will make Prince Jing spare you?" Du Jingshan had never seen her in such a fierce and aggressive manner. A flicker of surprise and doubt flashing in his hollow eyes, Zhao Wanlian realized she had lost her composure, forcefully suppressing her anger and softly comforting Du Jingshan. There was a kind of fearless ignorance in her words. "Husband, no matter how powerful Prince Jing is, can he really cut off the head of an imperial official like you for no reason? If it really comes to it, I'll go beg my father. I'll ask him to put in a good word for you in front of the emperor. After all, my father is a second-rank minister." Zhao Wanlian's words struck Du Jingshan like a sharp blow, jolting him awake. For the first time, he began to truly examine the noblewoman he had once longed for. A chill, mixed with regret, surged in his heart. He interrupted Zhao Wanlian, his voice hoarse. "Liana, tell me the truth. Did you really subject Yue to private punishment?" Zhao Wanlian felt flustered under his gaze. She forced herself to straighten up, leaning closer with a mix of aggrieved indignation and anger at being questioned. "Husband, what are you saying? Was I wrong to discipline her? I had only the best intentions." Du Jingshan turned his face away, unwilling to listen any further. Perhaps at this moment, the answer no longer mattered in his heart. Zhao Wanlian was met with a cold reception. She gritted her teeth in secret, suppressing her anger as she turned and left. As soon as she opened the door, a servant stumbled in, his face pale. "Madam, it's terrible. The young master got into a fight with the son of the Minister of Justice at the academy and accidentally pushed him into the water." "What?" Zhao Wanlian's scream instantly pierced the deathly silence of the Du residence. "Jingwang Mansion, Yue now follows me closely, unwilling to part even when sleeping. After 3 years of separation, I too crave this warmth. She gradually revealed a bit of her former liveliness. Especially loving to slip into the silk quilt after bathing, clinging to me and recounting every detail of the past 3 years, I always responded with patience, until this night, she suddenly lifted her little face and asked out of the blue, "Mother, does Prince Jing like you?" I was momentarily stunned. My thoughts were instantly pulled back to 3 years ago. After being rescued, I was severely injured and remained unconscious for a long time. Upon waking, I was weak and had lost my memory, appearing listless and dispirited all day long. Xiao Heng often came to visit, bringing me many novel items, popular storybooks, exquisite hairpins, and best-selling cosmetics, all of which were favored by young women of the inner chambers. I accepted them with a smile, but my reactions were rather indifferent. The only thing that truly piqued my interest was the household account books. After he noticed, he would always come with a stack of account books, saying it was to exercise my mind. During those days, he would often chatter about amusing stories from the military, while I quietly listened and skillfully worked the abacus. 3 years passed in a flash, and my room was filled with the little trinkets he had given me, along with several thick stacks of account books. I gradually grew accustomed to having him around, even secretly looking forward to his visits. Just as he half-jokingly asked, "How about pledging yourself to me?" I regained my memory. With too many thoughts weighing on my mind, I didn't answer him and hurried back to the capital. Upon careful reflection, perhaps he did have some affection for me. It seems, Mother also favored Prince Jing. Yu's voice, carrying the certainty of a little adult, interrupted my daze. I snapped back to reality, meeting her mischievous, smiling eyes. "Mother, look, your face is all red." My fingertips touched my cheek, and indeed, it felt burning hot to the touch. "Yua," I quickly composed myself, suppressing the flutter in my heart, and earnestly admonished her, "You must never say such things again. The prince is of noble status, and we are already immensely grateful for his protection. We dare not entertain any improper thoughts. If we anger him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Do you understand?" Yua pouted and snuggled even closer into my arms, but the prince asked me to call him Uncle Mingyuan, and he secretly gave me delicious sugar cakes. "Yua thinks the prince is a very good person." My heart trembled slightly, but I still shook my head. "Even so, I cannot say it." Yua smiled faintly, snuggling into my arms, and nodded obediently. "I understand, Mother." The little one in my arms gradually breathed steadily. As I gazed at the flickering candle flame, my heart could no longer remain calm. The newly bloomed magnolia by the window was elegant and pure. Just as I was gazing at it intently, Xiao Heng swept in with a gust of wind and tossed a few account books onto my desk. "Chinga, help me take a look." That familiar tone instantly pulled me back to the past. I silently picked up the topmost book, my fingertips lightly brushing the abacus beads, the crisp clattering sound dispersing in the stillness. He leaned against the desk, his gaze fixed on my hands, casually mentioning, "That boy from the Du family pushed the precious grandson of the Minister of Justice into the lotus pond at the academy." I lowered my eyes, my fingers never ceasing, my voice calm. "My bond with him and his mother has long been severed. There is no need for your highness to trouble yourself by speaking of them to me." "Oh," he changed the subject with an air of knowing everything. "Coincidentally, the Dali Temple recently obtained an account book of unknown origin, specifically recording the messy accounts of the Ministry of Works from a few years ago." I remained focused on the account book, simply saying, "I, a commoner, know nothing of official matters." He deliberately paused, pleased to see my fingers tighten slightly as I moved the abacus beads. "The amount of embezzlement recorded in that ledger is substantial, and the person in charge is none other than your ex-husband, Du Jingshan. I wonder if the Minister of the Court of Judicial Review, after obtaining this ledger and conducting an investigation, will be able to spare Du Jingshan's life." The crackling sound abruptly ceased. I raised my eyes, my gaze calm as it met Xiao Heng's smiling eyes. "Your Highness, do you believe that in the end, good and evil will always be repaid?" "Of course I believe," he answered without hesitation. "Someone like you, Chinga, is bound to receive good fortune." I smiled, put away the abacus, neatly stacked the sorted account books, and pushed them toward him, my voice clear and resolute. "I used to believe in that, but now I have my doubts. Rather than believing in karma, I prefer to trust that success depends on human effort. Xiao Heng did not take the account book. Instead, his gaze remained fixed on me for a long time, as if trying to pierce through all disguises and reach the depths of my heart. I instinctively avoided his gaze, stood up, and said, "The accounts have been sorted out. If your highness has no further instructions." Before the words had even finished, my wrist was suddenly gently grasped by a warm hand. "Chinga." Xiao Heng held on to me, no longer teasing. His tone was unprecedentedly solemn. "If you ever face difficulties, I will always be here." I turned around and met his gaze. Those eyes, which always held a glint of mischief, were now filled with pure sincerity, like deep pools reflecting the light of the stars. My heart trembled slightly, and I nodded gently, offering him an unreserved, steadfast smile in return. The grandson of the chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review was suffering from a persistent high fever. However, the corruption case involving Du Jingshan, the vice minister of the Ministry of Works, was spreading rapidly and fiercely. Inside the Du residence, Du Jingshan's injuries had not yet healed, but the situation had already become urgent. He forced himself to move around despite his illness, but the letters of introduction he sent to the Court of Judicial Review went unanswered. He refused to give up and, taking Zhao Wanlian with him, brought generous gifts to the door, only to be thrown out of the mansion by the guards along with the presents. They tumbled awkwardly into the middle of the street, drawing a wave of scornful glances. Du Jingshan, his eyes red with desperation, pushed Zhao Wanlian. "Go find your father. He can't just stand by and watch us die." Zhao Bingqian, the Minister of Works, had previously shielded Du Jingshan on many occasions as his father-in-law, but now, with his own safety in jeopardy, he had long since avoided any involvement. Zhao Wanlian visited several times, only to be met with closed doors. At the end of her rope, Du Jingshan, despite his illness, knelt upright before the gates of Jingwang Manor. He knelt from midday until dusk, his knees numb and cold sweat streaming down. Finally, the heavy door hinges creaked with a long, drawn-out groan. The door opened. I stand on the high steps, looking down at him as if he were a pile of mud. Du Jingshan's eyes instantly focus. "Chinga, I knew you would come to see me. My voice is as cold and hard as ice. Minister Du. The Jing Prince's residence is not the Dali Temple. You are kneeling in the wrong place." He suddenly kowtowed, his forehead striking the blue bricks with a loud thud. "Chinga, I was wrong, truly wrong. I beg you, for the sake of our past affection, plead with Prince Jing on my behalf, spare my life." In the hoarse voice was the humility of a dog wagging its tail and begging for mercy. A cold, mocking smile curled at the corner of my lips. "Minister Du, you jest. I am but a lowly merchant's daughter. How could I possibly influence Prince Jing's decisions? You'd better pray for your own good fortune." He slowly raised his head, a hint of regret flickering in his eyes. "Chinga, I know it's hard to ask for your forgiveness, but I only hope you'll consider Xiena and Yue." Slap. I took a step forward, my palm carrying years of pent-up hatred, and slapped him hard across the face. "Shut up, you never taught Xiena. Letting Zhao Wanlian indulge him until he caused a disaster. You never raised Yue, letting her be looked down upon and suffer physical pain. As a father, you neither taught nor raised them. What right do you have to mention them?" Du Jingshan covered his face, his eyes red, frozen in place. His voice trembled as he tried to grasp at the last straw. I was deceived by Zhao Wanlian. I had no idea she would treat our flesh and blood so harshly. Chinga, Yue is with you now, but Xiena is still in the mansion. If I die, how will he survive?" I slowly descended the stone steps, stopping before him, my shadow completely enveloping him. "Du Jingshan, when I personally delivered your corrupt accounts to the Dali Temple, I had already foreseen your fate. Ungrateful, heartless, arrogant and hypocritical. The end you face today is of your own making. Did you think dragging Xiena into this would save you?" Du Jingshan trembled violently, his voice shaking as if he had finally seen me clearly. "It wasn't Prince Jing, it was you. I knew it. Those account books were locked in the secret chamber. How could they? Only you back then." "Yes, Du Jingshan." I straightened up, my tone laced with contempt. "It's a pity that after all these years of knowing each other, sharing the same bed, you never realized how sensitive I am to numbers, capable of remembering them at a glance. That damning ledger of yours, I only needed to see it once to recall every detail flawlessly." Back when I discovered the ledger, I still held onto a sliver of hope, thinking he had been corrupted by the officialdom. I had intended to use the pretext of offering incense to have a deep conversation with him, hoping he would turn back from his misguided path. Unexpectedly, an accident left me severely injured by bandits, and 3 years later, it allowed me to see his true nature clearly. Du Jingshan fell into a deathly silence. After a long while, his lips trembled as he squeezed out his final words. "Chinga, are you really going to marry Prince Jing? Whether I marry or not, what does it have to do with you?" I said coldly. "Even if I don't offer myself in marriage, I would never be as ungrateful and treacherous as you." I emphasized the last few words heavily, as if delivering a verdict. The Shen family saved the impoverished scholar Du Jingshan, and Shen Qingge saved Du Jingshan, the Vice Minister of Works. In the end, they received not a shred of gratitude, only a betrayal that cut to the bone. The light in Du Jingshan's eyes completely extinguished. A deathly grey despair enveloped his entire body as he collapsed to the ground, unable to utter another sound. I turned away, without a trace of lingering attachment. Behind me, the heavy vermilion lacquered door slowly closed, completely severing my past with Du Jingshan. The Dali Temple acted swiftly, and the investigation into the accounts was nearing its conclusion. Du Jingshan lay on the bed with a face as pale as death, awaiting the verdict from the Dali Temple. At this moment, Zhao Wanlian knelt by the bedside with Du Yixuan, tears welling in her eyes as she pleaded for a divorce agreement. "Husband, Xian'er is still so young. If both of us are gone, how will he survive?" Du Jingshan remained unmoved. "Xian'er is her son, she won't abandon him." Zhao Wanlian secretly nudged Xian'er, who stumbled to the bedside and cried, "Father, I don't want that woman, I only want this mother." The mother and son wept bitterly, unable to bear parting. Du Jingshan finally turned his gaze, sighed deeply, and picked up his brush to write the divorce letter. "Since Xian'er cannot bear to leave you, you must take good care of him for me. Now, all I ask is for him to live a peaceful life." Zhao Wanlian held Xian'er tightly, nodded emphatically, and knelt down with tears streaming down her face to receive the order. A cold rain drizzled down from the gloomy sky. Officials from the Dali Temple had arrived. Du Jingshan was roughly dragged out of bed and forced to kneel on the ground. The official announced the verdict in his ear. Du Jingshan is stripped of his official position, his family property is confiscated, and he is to be executed after autumn, for the next 3 generations. The Du family is forbidden from taking the imperial examinations, and the female members are to be conscripted as courtesans. Du Jingshan seemed oblivious, his mind filled with images of Shen Qingge, recalling their first meeting in Jiangnan. The stirring in his heart felt genuine. They were once an enviable couple, but at some point, everything changed. He took her efforts for granted, and now he truly reaps what he sowed. Du Jingshan knelt numbly, letting the cold rain soak him through. Regret tightened around his heart like thorns, choking him until he could barely breathe. Suddenly, an official rushed in with urgent news. The Du family's treasury was empty, and the assets seized were pitifully meager. Upon careful questioning, it was revealed that since Du Jingshan's downfall, Zhao Wanlian had been secretly transferring funds until she had taken everything. Upon learning the truth, Du Jingshan's body trembled violently. Hot blood gushed out wildly, and his vision went dark as he fell forward heavily, like a broken log. Zhao Wanlian fled in fear of punishment, absconding with the money, only to be intercepted by the guards of Jing Manor and thrown into the death row. The death row was damp and gloomy, filled with a suffocating mix of mold and the heavy scent of blood. Du Jingshan huddled in the corner, gaunt and lifeless. In the neighboring cell, Zhao Wanlian had completely shed all pretense, screaming curses at him. "Du Jingshan, you useless waste, a jinx, you've ruined me. I'll haunt you even as a ghost." Du Jingshan's eyes were bloodshot, listening numbly without any reaction. Clang! The iron chains suddenly rattled as a guard roughly shoved in a disheveled, grimy prisoner. The man stumbled and fell, but upon looking up and seeing Zhao Wanlian, he erupted violently. "It's you, the little bitch of the Zhao family. I recognize you." Zhao Wanlian's curses abruptly ceased, her expression turning terrified. You're not dead." The man clutched the prison bars tightly, spittle flying as he spoke. "Didn't expect that, did you? 3 years ago, your Zhao family had me kidnap that Du fellow, promised me an official position. And what happened? I've been rotting in this godforsaken place for 3 years. The bandit's words pierced Du Jingshan's ears like red-hot poisoned needles. He instantly understood that the assassination attempt 3 years ago was Zhao Bingqian's plan to eliminate him and make room for someone else, and Zhao Wanlian, the unfavored daughter of the Zhao family, coincidentally appeared, tirelessly caring for him, gentle and attentive, and married him. This made Zhao Bingqian abandon his murderous intent, while also fulfilling her ambition to climb the social ladder. Zhao Wanlian stepped on Shenqinga's blood to climb into his bed. Du Jingshan's eyes were wide with fury, a sweet taste rose in his throat, and he spewed a torrent of blood. He roared like a wild beast, lunging toward the prison bars, his hands thrusting through the gaps to tightly grip Zhao Wanlian's neck. Caught off guard, Zhao Wanlian's eyes bulged as she struggled desperately to break free before collapsing to the ground, coughing and choking. Before she could even catch her breath, she saw the released bandit approaching her with a sinister grin. His body trembled like a sieve, his gaze completely unfocused. Du Jingshan watched this scene unfold before his eyes, first stunned, then bursting into a fit of hysterical laughter. He laughed and clapped, and in an instant, tears streamed down his face. The laughter abruptly stopped, his eyes suddenly empty and dazed, as he murmured softly, "Xiena, Yua." Then he suddenly turned towards the prison door, shaking it with all his might, the iron chains clattering loudly. "Let me out. I want to see her. I want to see Shenqinga, this grand spectacle." I had long been taken by Xiao Heng to a hidden spot, witnessing it all. That bandit was also a captive intentionally left alive by Xiao Heng, originally intended to be handed over to me for disposal, but after interrogation, there was an unexpected discovery. Seeing this, I stepped out from the shadows and stood directly in front of Du Jingshan's cell door, my gaze icy cold. Upon seeing me, a faint glimmer flashed in his eyes as he trembled and knelt down, crying and laughing, "Qinga, Qinga." Xiao Heng silently stepped forward and stood by my side. When Du Jingshan saw him, the light in his eyes instantly faded. He lowered his head, not daring to look at me again, and buried his face in the filthy ground. After a long while, with his last shred of clarity, he trembled and pleaded with me. "Xiena was taken away by Zhao Wanlian, and I don't know if he's alive or dead. Qinga, I beg you, save him one last time. For your kindness, I, Du Jingshan, will repay you in the next life." Even as a beast of burden, I have my own plans for Xiena. I cut him off, my voice devoid of emotion. "Death settles all debts. I won't let the rest of my life be trapped in hatred. But whether you become an ox or a horse, in this life and all the ones to come, we need never know each other again." With those words, I turned and walked away without looking back. The heavy prison door shut out Du Jingshan's agony and Zhao Wanlian's heart-wrenching screams. When Xiao Heng's men found Xiena, he was mingling among the city's beggars, disheveled and covered in grime. Zhao Wanlian had abandoned him like a burden when she fled. Seeing me approach, he timidly looked up, his first words a plea for his mother, his gaze piercing my heart with sorrow. In the end, I sent him off to the military camp. What lies ahead depends entirely on his own fate. Although we may meet again as mother and son in the future, I know in my heart that our bond will never be the same as before. A month has passed, and the autumn equinox has arrived. The next day, Du Jingshan was pushed onto the execution platform, in the warm chamber of Jingwang Mansion. I was teaching Yua to practice calligraphy. Xiao Heng stepped in, holding a stack of account books. Du Jingshan has confessed to the evidence of his crimes, and the Zhao family has been added to the Dali Temple's arrest list. He set down the account book, his voice carrying the calm of settled dust. I nodded, my gaze falling upon the new account book. I noticed the anomalies in the account book, but I still sorted through it in silence. He took the account book I had organized, smiling brightly. "In the past, the account books were all from the Jingwang estate's properties. You've essentially gone through all of them. Now this is the account book of the estate. Since you've already seen it, you can't run away anymore." I lifted my gaze to meet his sincere, intense eyes, then looked down to see Yua's expectant expression. Suddenly, my heart felt clear and open. I was never a weak person to begin with, so why should I be timid and hesitant? If I still dare not face my own heart now, that would truly be a betrayal of his kindness. "Your Highness," I mustered the courage to meet his gaze. "Your kindness. Qinga will remember it deeply in this lifetime, and never dare to forget." He looked at me quietly, as if waiting for me to continue. I paused for a long time before finally delivering the words that had already lingered in my heart 1,000 times over, with solemnity, "If your highness does not mind, Chinga is willing to marry you as your wife." The next moment, I was fiercely embraced in his arms. "I've been waiting for you for so long. Tomorrow, we'll get married." After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it.